Okay, so I'm going to go over the checking collisions exercise now. This is where we're going to be detecting collisions between our ship and the obstacle. And so, when I run a code right now with a starter code, I'm going to be assuming you've already moved your colors and your graphic for your vehicle over. At the moment, our ship can fly right through the obstacle. If we hit the top wall, though, or if we hit the bottom wall, we are going to get a collision and we're going to get our lose screen because that's what we did in the last stage, which was called colliding with the walls. Now, before I even start to add code here in checking collisions, and we don't have any new variables at this stage, we're just going to be rolling down here to the end and we're going to be adding code inside the check collisions function, our old friend, if hit wall, calling the lose function. This will be sticking around this will be the last lesson. This will be here. In the next lesson, adding the terrain and making the terrain move. When we get to that lesson, we're going to be getting rid of this because we're going to be changing how we detect collisions with our ship and the top and bottom of the screen once we start putting some terrain in there. But before we start this, okay, we need to look at our ship here. We need to think about our ship. I want you to understand that as we're looking at our ship here, we are thinking about 5 different points around our ship that we need to get information. And I actually explain how all this works, and I will here in a moment. But this top left corner represents the actual position of our ship. This point right here in the top left corner, that is how our ship is positioned in X and Y on the screen. Once we know what that point is, knowing the fact that our ship is 50 pixels wide and 25 pixels tall, we can find the coordinates of the other 4 points. And that's what we're going to be doing here in checking collisions, getting all the elements near our vehicle. We're going to be checking 5 locations. Now, over here in the assignment, I put a graphic up. I did this in class. You need to know this and understand this. This is a hand-drawn version of that image right there. Pardon my hand-drawn limitations. But the vehicle's X and Y position is right up here in the left corner. To find the coordinates of all the rest of the positions, we got to remember that, there's 2 points that are on this horizontal line. Everywhere on that horizontal line, the Y position is the same because all of the Y values on a horizontal line are the same. Along the horizontal line, the X values change. The left corner is the X position, but this spot in the middle is the X position plus the vehicle width, which is 50, divided by 2, which means we're going to add 25 to the X position to get the X coordinate of this point right here. Likewise, in this bottom corner right here, it's a vertical line. These 2 points lie on the same vertical line. Everywhere on vertical lines, the X coordinate is the same everywhere on a vertical line. However, vertically, the Y position is going to change. From up here in the top left corner, our Y position needs to have added to it the entire height of the vehicle. We add the entire height of the vehicle to the Y position. This gets us the Y coordinate of this point down here. Likewise, this point right over here, these 2 points would lie on the same vertical line. So for sure, their X position is the same. So that's X position plus vehicle width divided by 2. So this point will have X position plus vehicle width divided by 2. The Y position is different though, because these are on vertical lines. Y position's up here corresponding to the top left corner. Down here, this Y position matches this Y position plus the vehicle height. We have to add the entire height of the vehicle to the Y position to get this coordinate for our Y for this middle bottom point. These last point here on the front of the ship, this is going to be our X position plus the entire width of the vehicle. So we have X position plus vehicle width. That's that X coordinate. Its Y coordinate is the Y position from this corner here, plus the vehicle height divided by 2. And that will get me that Y position. Every second, 25 times a second, our program is going to be getting all this information. It's going to be checking to see, did our ship hit an obstacle? Did our ship hit a terrain? Most of the time, our ship's going to have hit nothing. Most of these points, when we get them, when we test them, they're all going to be what's called null, because when we get these test points, there's going to be nothing there. But if there's terrain there, or if there's an obstacle there, then we need to handle that collision. And these test points will tell us whether or not we ran into something labeled is obstacle. Now, let's head on over here to the code. We got to start putting this all together in code. So now to get these, we got to get 6 different X and Y variables, 6 local variables here. This first one's going to be called player position X. And it's going to be equal to the vehicle dot get X. And I'm going to subtract 1 from that. And the reason why I'm subtracting 1 from that is so that I can make sure that I'm not on my vehicle graphic. This is going to move me 1 pixel to the left. And you can even see that over here in this. I got a little corner here. Here's our graphic. You know, the vehicle's X position is going to be right there, but 1 pixel to the left is going to be this empty slot. It's 1 pixel to the left of our graphic, and that's why we do the subtract 1. We're also going to recycle this line of code because it's got almost everything I need, except I need to change the X into a capital Y in both of these cases. I'm going to have a player position Y equal to the vehicle dot get Y. And again, I'm going to be subtracting 1 from that point. Why? Well, this is the Y position of the graphic. That's going to move its Y position up 1. And the X position is going to be moved over 1. So secretly, we're getting this pixel that's just directly diagonal to this corner of our graphic. We're getting that pixel right there on this corner. And we're going to do this on the corners. We're not going to worry about it in the middle of the graphic, but we're going to worry about it on the corners. The middle of the graphic's already got our Y value raised up 1, so it's going to be 1 pixel above the graphic. So it's all going to be handled okay. Back here, we need 4 more variables. The first one's going to be called player position bottom Y. And the player position bottom Y is going to be equal to the player position Y plus the vehicle height, and I want to add 2 more to that. Now, this might get tricky for you to understand why would I want to add 2 more to that. The reason why is for the player position on the bottom Y, that's going to be this point right down here, the bottom Y point here in this corner. And for that matter, this bottom Y, both of these. So this is Y position plus vehicle height. Because our Y position was 1 pixel above, adding the vehicle height is going to still keep me 1 pixel above that point in the bottom. But if I add 2 more pixels, now I'm 1 pixel below. Hopefully you get it. Yeah, I got my player position bottom Y. Next, I'm going to have my player position middle X. And I forgot something important here. Don't forget your var. Player position middle X. Now that's going to be my player position X. And to that, I'm going to add the vehicle width divided by 2. My next variable is going to be my player position right X. And that will be my player position X plus the entire width of the vehicle. And to that, I want to add 2 more, again, for that same reason, to get me to a pixel that's right in front of, and not on my graphic, but right in front of my graphic. And my last variable is going to be my player position middle Y. And that's going to be equal to my player position Y. And to that, I'm going to add 1/2 of the vehicle's height. That's these last 2 variables right here are getting me the X and the Y coordinate of this point. It's the right X all the way over there on the right and the middle Y, the Y value that's in the middle of the whole graphic. And of course, all the way across the graphic, that middle of the graphic has that Y value. Now, this sets up my initial 6 variables I need. Now I'm going to need to get 5 new variables to test the 5 locations around my ship using these 6 x and y coordinate values. So the first one's going to be called my top left element, and this is going to be using the get element at function. This is a JavaScript function that gets at the coordinates I'm going to feed it, which is going to be my player position x and my player position y. That's the actual position of the ship. It's going to get any element that's at that point. If there's an obstacle or a terrain there, it's going to get that obstacle or get that terrain. If there's nothing there, it's just going to get null. The next element we're going to get is the bottom left element. And again, I'm going to be using get element at. And it's going to be at the player position x, because these 2 values lie on the same vertical line. The bottom left element, the top left element, these are these 2 points, top left, bottom left. They are going to have the same x position, but their y position is going to be different. This one's going to be the y position plus the vehicle height, and we call that variable player position bottom y. We'll put that in there. We'll get our next element. Our next element is going to be our top middle element. And our top middle element will be get element at. And now this is going to be a new x position. This is going to be our player position middle x. And it's going to be our player position y, because it's right up there on the same y value as our top left point. So player position middle x, player position y. Don't forget your terminator. The next one's going to be my bottom middle element. And that will be get element at. And now that's going to be my player position middle x. So that x value. And the player position bottom y. And the last element is going to be that one that's out front. It's going to be our middle right element. And this will be get element at. And we're going to have here player position right x. So that's this last variable that we can see hasn't been used yet, but now it's being used. And the player position middle y, the very last one we hadn't used yet. And now we've got our 5 elements set up. Okay. After this first stage, you should have hit your run button to make sure you didn't have any errors in your code. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. After this block, you should hit your run button again and make sure you don't have any errors in your code. Everything should still be working. No collisions yet, but everything should still be working. Now we're going to use these 5 elements and we're going to send them off to this function called check element. The check element function is the function it's expecting to receive an element, and it's going to check to see if it's null. If it's null, it's going to do nothing. But if it's not null, it's going to handle the collision that occurred. So first we got to set up those calls. This is check element, and the first value, actually I'm going to set this up so that I can do this by brute force. I'm going to make this call 5 times. So let me copy this. Let me come down a line. There we go. I got 5 of them. Take out all those unnecessary new lines. Then inside the parentheses, I'm going to feed each of these elements. Oops. Just want the actual element, not the whole line of code, Robert. Did you know you can double click a variable and then copy it? If you just double click it, it'll select it all. You can copy it, paste it. It did it to me again. Be careful. Make sure you paste the right thing. And there we go. Now that's going to send all of those elements, the top left, top middle, bottom middle, and middle right elements. So That's going to send them off to the check element function. So the last thing we need to do here is go do our check element function. The first thing we do here is we set up a local variable called elm, and we're going to load in that element that got passed. So this element that gets passed to the check element function, the top left, top middle, bottom middle, middle right, those are all going to get sent. When they get to the function, they're just going to be called element. Their name changes, but what they contained, it doesn't. That element gets loaded into a local variable. This is a standard procedure when dealing with passed parameters by functions. You generally want to move them into a local variable before you start operating on them. Now, next I'm going to check to see if this ELM that was passed, if it's equal to null, that means that there was nothing there, nothing to see here. And so if that's the case, we just want to return. We want to break out of this if statement and just go back and not think about anything else. However, if that's false, that means we hit something. Well, we need to check to see if the element is tagged is obstacle. And if that's true, we want to call the lose function. And can you believe? That's it. This little simple function is going to get these 5 function calls. It's going to check those 5 points. And if it hits something, it's going to handle it. If it hits something, we lose. This is going to happen 25 times a second because our frame rate for our game is 25 frames per second. Now, let's see if it works. First, I'm going to check head-on collision and crashola. I crashed into the obstacle. Now, that's that point right out front right here. Also, I need to check the other points. I need to try to intentionally crash, and I think I definitely caught the middle bottom point. I just tested that point right there. That point worked. I know that point works because I could see it. That's where the impact occurred, and I got a collision. Let me see if I can get that. There we go. I got the bottom left point. I just caught the collision at the bottom left point. Now let's see about colliding from, there we go. Looks to me like I got that middle because I'm definitely not at the back point, but I caught the middle. So I just tested this point right here. I got one more point to test, and then I will have tested all of my collision points, and that's not a good obstacle for that test. I need an obstacle. That's not a good obstacle for that test either. If I really want to test that, boy, I'm really scoring big on these awful obstacles. All right, I probably could do it right here if I'm very strategic, and indeed, I got it. I caught the collision on the back top left point. That actually marks the actual coordinates of our graphic. I collided at that point. I checked all my points of collision. You should make sure that you collided all your points, that none of your collisions are bizarre. And thanks a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in class.